Welcome to the Crosslake City Council Candidate Forum. My name is Cindy Mugato. I'm the director of the Crosslake Chamber of Commerce, and tonight's forum is being organized by the Chamber in partnership with the League of Women Voters. A special thanks to the Gibbs family and Haley Van Buren in the back for the use of the gathering this evening. Also, thank you to Wayne Holtmeyer of the League of Women Voters, who is our moderator this evening, and Pat Netco of Lake Country Crafts and Poems, who is our timer this evening. I would also like to thank all of you candidates for appearing, as well as the attendants for coming to the forum. As you know, we all have the right to vote and a responsibility to make an informed choice. This forum is a wonderful opportunity to get to know all of the local candidates by hearing from them directly. Additionally, the Brainerd Lakes Chamber of Commerce has created a website for your convenience with information about the federal, state, county, city, and school board candidates. The website is lakesarea.vote. This evening's forum is being recorded for replay on the Chamber's website and will be available for viewing until Election Day. Tonight we will hear from the City Council candidates and mayoral candidates. 3 candidates are competing for 2 available 4-year City Council terms, and 2 candidates are running for mayor, which is a 2-year term. So before we begin, I'm going to turn it over to Wayne, who would like to address a few of the key points.
Thank you and good evening. First, the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of the forum organizers. Organizers do not endorse candidates or political parties. We ask attendees to be as quiet as possible while the candidates are speaking so that everyone is able to hear, and also please silence your cell phones. Please hold your applause until the forum has ended so that the candidates have their entire allotted time to make their points. No photography or video recording is allowed during this forum. You are welcome to submit written questions for candidates on note cards that are provided. And if you want a note card, I think you just raise your hand and someone will make sure that you receive one. Questions that are unclear, hostile, or of a personal nature will not be asked. We reserve the right to reword or consolidate questions in order to cover as many topics as possible. If we do not read your question or an answer is unclear, feel free to speak to the candidates after the forum. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for opening remarks. Then I will read a series of prepared questions. And if time permits, I will ask audience-submitted questions. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Each candidate will then have 1 minute for a closing statement. To ensure fairness, we will rotate the order of answering questions. If time runs out, candidates are allowed to quickly finish their comments. The entire forum will be 90 minutes in length, and with that, we will move to the opening statements. Bob, would you start, please?
Sure. Let me get my microphone on. It's great to see so many of you here tonight, and so many of you smiling. I hope you're still smiling after 90 minutes. I think I know quite a few of you. I started in Crosslake almost 50 years ago. I came up here for the 4th of July weekend in 1976. Little did I know what I was getting into. I brought a tent up in my 63 Corvette, and my buddy and I were going to stay in the campground, but there was no room at the inn. So I ended up sleeping in my car that night. But the very next morning, I bought my first cabin, my first real estate investment at 21. And that started my love affair with Crosslake. Been here most ever since. I started out with my community involvement by running a charity golf tournament every year in September. The funds we raised from that was split with the Make-A-Wish Foundation and the police department and the fire department for safety equipment. I serve on the Crosslake St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee. I've been doing that for 12 years, the last 2 as chairman of the committee. For over 3 years, I've served as chairman of the Public Safety Commission in Crosslake, and I find that very rewarding. It's just something that's been in my blood for a long time, so it's something I really enjoy doing. I was a private investigator for nearly 40 years. I had very successful offices in Denver and Minneapolis. I was involved in some high-profile cases up here about 20 years ago involving some missing young ladies from this area. And it's just something that I live with every day, that I think about every day. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, but at the same time, I'm glad that these families now have a place to go and bring flowers. They know where their loved ones are at. I could write a book on many other stories, but we don't have enough time tonight. I'm a 40-year member of the World Association of Detectives. I'm a past president. I've been executive director of that organization for 18 years, president emeritus for the last 18 months. And it's just an association that was started actually almost 100 years ago. We'll be celebrating our 100th next year. So I look forward to giving back to the community I love, and would be honored to have your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin.
My mic is red, evidently working. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and League of Women Voters, audience, and fellow candidates for taking the time to help us learn about our voting options. My background includes 27 years as a financial leader for the state of Minnesota. I recently retired from the Department of Transportation, where I was the agency finance director, controller, which included the management of the $4 billion annual budget a year. I am married to my spouse of 34 years, retired Major John Sylvester back in the corner. We have 3 adult married children, and I'm a grandma of 8 little ones, 6 and under. But most importantly, I humbly and proudly share that I am a Christian. God is my rock. We have, at the end of our driveway, a flag that many of you may have seen. It states, quote, "As for me and my house, I will serve the Lord. I'll kneel at the cross. I'll salute the flag and stand for the anthem. God, family, country are my priorities." I've been coming up to this area since the 70s. Many of you know Upper Hay Hideaway Resort, Upper Hay Lake, the one that thinks they're part of the Whitefish chain, but we're kind of disconnected. That's been home for us adult children to visit for years, and prior to that, we were on a mission. Finally, why am I running? I have the time, I have the energy and desire to make a difference right here at home. I'm blessed with the skills and the work experience to be a positive contributor to the council. As a retired budget director, finance director, controller, I feel like my skills would be very useful to support our city administrator, our city leaders, the mayor, and the council. I would be honored to work for you. Again, thank you for the opportunity to visit with y'all tonight.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Thank you to the Chamber, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and everyone for coming. My name is Jamie Knapp. I'm running for City Council here in Crosslake. I grew up in the area just down the road, Ideal Corners. Graduated from Pequot Lakes in '89. Met my high school sweetheart, Angie, who's a native Crosslaker. We left the area for several years, got our college degrees, got my bachelor's degree, went on to get my master's degree in health administration. Spent the next 20 years in the small town of Cold Spring, Minnesota, much like Crosslake. In 2015, I got a seat on the council there and really learned a lot about the inner workings of a city. If you ever want to get to intimately know your city, get involved, get on the council, get on a committee, get on a commission. In 2016, I was elected to a 4-year seat on the council. During my 5 years on the Cold Spring City Council, I gained the knowledge, the experience, what it takes to be a dedicated public servant, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was on the EDA Commission, the Tri-City Cable Commission, part of several hiring committees there, including hiring their current Director of Public Works and their current police chief. Both my wife and I work from home in Crosslake. We have 2 grown children. They're still back home in Cold Spring, Sartell area. I serve on the Crosslake Public Safety Commission, and I'm a volunteer firefighter. So again, I know what it is to serve the city, I know what it is to do dedication. I know what it is to take the energy and the time out and serve the people of Crosslake. I know we have a lot to do in this seat. I know there's a lot of issues that require a lot of attention, a lot of detail, a lot of integrity, holding people accountable, and asking the tough questions. We need to continue to move forward, and I'm dedicated and ready to serve the people of Crosslake. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Yep. Hello, everybody. I'm probably the most familiar face up here. Here I am again. I've been mayor now for 3 terms, and I get asked all the time, why do you do it? I do it because I love this town. I do it, I get a lot of support from the community. A lot of people tell me you're doing a good job, stay in there. In the last 6 years, I look at the things that we have done. You know, we built a new city hall, new fire hall, new park. I've orchestrated, a lot of committees, got a lot of community involvement, people involved. When we started to look at we're building a new fire hall, I'll skip through some of the details, but the budget was set at $15 million to do it. So we developed about a 22-person committee, citizen committee, to look into it. And we spent a couple months, whatever the time was, came up with lots of alternatives. We ended up building the fire hall remodel and building the new city hall for $6 million total. It was probably 6.5 or something by the time it was done, but we saved the taxpayers about $9 million for doing that. That I take as a real compliment, a real stroke I give to myself for doing that. And I will continue to do that for this town, try to be as fiscally responsible as I can. There's a lot of other things, there's what's the canoe park called? Overlook Park, that was just put in, and believe me, I'm not taking credit for these things, but there's the dog park was in it, the pickleball courts, the new playground equipment at the city. These are all done by community people involved. And I'm gonna give you one example of what I did, like with the pickleball courts. The pickleball group came and said, we want 6 courts. We got a real demand for it. And I questioned them, I challenged them. I said, where are these people that play pickleball from? Well, they're from all over the surrounding area. Mission, 50, they're from all over. So I challenged them, you come up with half the money to build these pickleball courts, and we will support the other half of it. And it took them about 6 months, and they had the money. Now they came back to us for 4 more additional pickleball courts they do. And in about 2 months' time, they raised the entire amount of money to build it. So it's challenging and getting people involved. I just see countless opportunities to do that. And people love being involved. They love getting in it. So that's who I am. You've heard about my kids and 30 years up here and all that stuff before, so I'll just go over that. But I'm in it because I care about town. That's it, thanks.
Jackson?
Hi everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jackson Purfirst. I graduated from Pequot Lakes High School in 2019 and then went over to CLC to pursue a liberal arts degree. From there, I am now at the University of Minnesota finishing up a bachelor's in business degree. The question has been raised, how can you be mayor and do school at the same time? Well, to answer that question, I figured out a good work-life balance by taking three classes a semester with getting good grades and have plenty of time to do my city business. I believe I have the qualifications to be mayor, and that is because I already am I've already been on the city council for 2 years. I am currently the treasurer of the Crowing Power Community Operation Roundup Board. That's through Crowing Power, and when you round up your bill, we give that money back quarterly. And there's actually a lot of organizations in Crosslake that reap that benefit. I'm also the former secretary and current president of my lake association, the Big Pine Lake Association. I also served as an intern in the Minnesota Senate in 2021 under Senator Kerry Root. I also have city budget experience and union negotiation experience. People often ask me why am I running? As a current city council member and after 2 years being on council, I see a strong need for strong leadership. I have no personal agenda as being mayor of our wonderful city. I look forward to continuing to create a healthy work environment for our city staff and our community. I also believe that city council meetings can be run more effectively, efficiently, and orderly in a timely manner to get city business done. During tonight's question and answer, I hope I can gain your trust and your support and your vote on November 5th.
Excuse me, Mike. I'd like 15 minutes. Could I use it?
I think we're done. We're just
It's
going,
not about me.
well, can you hold it for your closing statement? Okay.
I'm going to use it, Wayne. People, I just wanted to mention that we lost a community member this week, Jim Anderson. Is it on?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to butt in like that, but I just wanted to acknowledge Jim, all he's done for this community and the loss that we've had. And I was going to ask you to take a moment, but I'm not going to do that. Excuse me, sorry.
Robin, the first question is going to be for you. You're going to start off. It relates to city staffing. In the last 2 years, the city has added several full-time employees in the fire department, police department, planning and zoning, and city administration. What criteria or method will you use to justify the need for additional staffing in the future?
That's a really great question. As a leader of a team of 130 people at MnDOT, that was a moving target all of the time. What we need to do is make sure that we're adjusting our resources, our full-time equivalent, our part-time, our on-call, based on the need of the community and the desire of the community. For instance, if the recreation area is independent, it's making revenue, it has the revenue to sustain a position, then if there's budget allows it, let's talk about it. Let's meet the needs of the demand. On the other hand, if it's coming from general fund, wow, what are we going to give up to balance it, or do we have new revenue coming in to balance it? As a fiscal conservative person, and I'm not afraid to say that, it's about the taxpayers. It's about what you all want for services and what we need to keep our community safe and secure. I know that there's a couple of folks on this panel that are very involved in the fire and safety group. I do want to share, I personally experienced a fire in Longville, and I had asked Jamie, I said, did you guys respond to this? I said, so if you did, thank you for your service. You guys hadn't. But it's important that we make sure we have the balanced resources based on the needs and the demand of the community. If the population increases, more revenue comes in, let's figure out how we rebalance the new revenue coming in with the need. So that's how I would address hiring more full-time positions. Thank you.
Jamie?
Thank you, great question. So staffing, I think, in any city is a challenge, and it's a fiscal responsibility challenge. It's also a leadership challenge. Our city has certainly seen its issues on both sides of it. So how do you manage and mitigate through that? I think one of it is compromise, and compromise on where you want to go and how you want to manage your city and what resources you want. For example, we certainly, as was mentioned, we brought in a full-time fire chief. That cost of that is being subsidized by short-term rental fees. So as the mayor has said, I'm going to give him props here, he's always been an advocate of when short-term rentals come in and we have to hire staffing, it should be of no cost to residents. So again, I think city staffing is, as Robin had mentioned, even it's how do you manage that fiscally responsibly as your city grows. As things grow and move forward, you certainly have more. There's certainly a heavy push on resources, and you can only stretch your resources so much before they break. So I think there has to be a give and take and a balance of what do you want to accomplish and how do you want to grow and in which direction you want to grow.
Thank you, Dave.
I'm sorry, Wayne, could you repeat that question?
Yes, I will repeat the question one time. This relates to city staffing. In the last 2 years, the city has added several full-time employees in the fire department, police department, planning and zoning, and city administration. What criteria or method will you use to justify the need for additional staffing in the future?
Okay, first of all, we have not added anybody to planning and zoning. We have changed people, but we haven't added a position there. I think we're going to need to do that. The police admin, I wish I could get Chip into this. I think Jen is supposed to kind of help the fire out too, but she is an administrative assistant to the police, which frees their time up. We had a police officer this summer that I don't know if he broke his leg or ankle, but he was laid up for 6 weeks. And we've got some senior staff on all of our departments that have got built up vacation time. And so we run into trouble filling shifts because of whatever. It's a tight balance what we have. This city, I think, requires services. They demand services. So we have to make sure we can fulfill those services. We try to balance it. It's a real juggling act. We try to balance it, but I think we would probably err on the side of going more than less when we're providing services to this community. I just think they expect it. I guess that's the answer.
Okay, Jackson?
As long as, if there's a need to hire more city staff, I feel like we need to hire city staff, but while being fiscally responsible and making changes in our budget to reflect that, instead of charging the taxpayer to subsidize somebody's salary. I think we've shown that, we've been good at that, we've helped, we hired a full-time fire chief. That's a new position that, like David spoken about, there was talk about potentially adding a new planning and zoning intern this summer, and that is going to be taking advantage of a Sourcewell grant, and the city would complement that as well. Just as long as we're being fiscally responsible and amending our budget as we do the process, I feel like, and there's the demand for city staff, that's how I would handle it.
Thank you. Bob?
You'll hear a lot about fiscal responsibility from all of us, because I can safely say that's something we all agree on. When it comes to staffing, I rely on the recommendations of our police chief, our fire chief, our public works director, and the other departments. They're the people who know what they need, and then it's up to the city council to take a look at their recommendations, talk to the various commissions, get their recommendations, work within the budget, and try and make these things happen. People in Crosslake, the residents up here, have very high expectations for public safety, for one. It's a quality of life environment. You know, everybody wants a great quality of life. That's why we're all in Crosslake. So you're going to have the staff that provides that quality of life, whether that's another full-time police officer, or somebody else we have to add to the staff.
Okay, thank you. Jamie, the second question is going to start for you. Short-term rental. This current city council is implementing a short-term rental licensing program set to begin in January 2025. The proposal includes a licensure fee, health and safety certification, and regulations on sewer inspections, trash collection, and vehicle parking at rental properties. The city will manage all enforcement measures. Given that tourism in is Crosslake's primary industry, how do you balance necessary regulation with the risk of over-regulation?
That's a great question, and I think for many, many years, we as a community have looked at short-term rentals. The council has looked at short-term rentals, and I'm in agreement with the current look at how they're going to move forward with policy and releasing it. I think it comes down to good management of the short-term rentals. As a good homeowner, as a good neighbor. I've heard many times that it's 95, 96% of them do a really good job, they don't cause problems. It's the 3 and 4% that bring in the 10, 20, 30 people into a 3-bedroom house and a parking stall for 2. So I think the path that the city council has right now is a good path. I think they're taking control of it locally. I think if you have control locally, you're able to administer fines locally, and you're able to hold those short-term rental homeowners accountable and maintaining responsibility of keeping those around, because we certainly need them. When I grew up in Ideal Corners on Pig Lake, there were 3 resorts on there. There's 1 left on there, and they're slowly diminishing away on this chain. So we're not seeing any hotels or motels being built up here. It's short-term rentals that are coming to bring the people in here, and that lake that's why people come here. So I think we need to maintain, keeping good owners in short-term rental and holding them accountable.
Dave?
short-term rental, we've worked a lot on that over the last 3 or 4 years. Unfortunately, everybody doesn't respect their neighbors the way that some people think that they should. 10% of the operators may reside in California. They're not even here. Corporate people are buying houses as they come available. So the personal touch and the neighbor next door part is gone. So I'm extremely happy that we're gonna move ahead with this short-term rental ordinance. The fee that we're gonna charge, for sure there's 200 in town. There could be 350 of them in town. We're gonna charge $750 licensing fee per year. That's gonna generate $150,000 to $200,000. That's gonna help pay our fire chief's salary and time. He's gonna do inspections on all of them. It may help pay for another officer if we need it. It's putting it back on the short-term rental people to pay for this ordinance. We're not gonna put it on the backs of the taxpayers. They're gonna fund it, and we're gonna look at it each year. If we got an excess of money, we'll lower the fee. If we don't have enough, we'll raise the fee. Whatever it's gonna be, they're gonna pay for it, whatever it costs. Hopefully, we're not gonna have to look at tipped over garbage cans on the street all week long when they leave. And we're gonna have our parking spot at home when we go home and not the neighbor's parking in it. So that's the intent of it. It's just to police the 10% of them, unfortunately, and it's to get everybody to respect their neighbor.
Jackson?
I agree with Dave. That's why we had Dave initially started the short-term rental ordinance a few years ago, or the idea of bringing one to life. It's to weed out those bad actors and to weed out those bad neighbors and try to bring some tougher restrictions on being a proper neighbor to someone who's here all year round versus having someone who's at the house, numerous times, changing throughout multiple weeks of the summer. Like David said, $750 for a licensing fee, but we can only make so much off of that. We can only have enough money, or we can only generate enough revenue to manage that program. So maybe that fee will raise, or maybe it'll go down, but you can only break even. You can only make enough to run the program. I think this will work. It'll take some time to adjust and to figure out the kinks of the short-term rental ordinance, but I do have high hopes that hopefully this will work, weed out the bad actors.
Bob?
The regulation of short-term rentals is long overdue. We've been hearing the complaints for years. And it's not just a matter of the noise complaints, the parking complaints, the barking dog complaints, the garbage tipped over complaints, things like that. But there are life safety issues. And until this goes into effect, the fire department, the fire chief can't go into these buildings and make sure that they have working smoke detectors, or that they have egress windows in the basements and all the other things that go along with that. So that's very, very important. And I'm just happy to see it finally coming to a resolution.
Robin?
Going last is difficult because a lot of great things have been said here. I want to just reiterate, I am so happy that this issue is now a local issue versus a county issue. I think whatever we can do to manage locally is better for the community. The overregulation question, I've heard a lot of concern about just some of the terminology in the policy. It's growth. It's going to take time, like Jackson mentioned and others here mentioned. We got to work out the kinks. The parking issue, I know somebody's brought up, I have family that comes and we have 12 cars in the property. They have room for it, but we leave maybe after 10 o'clock with curfew. We have to just kind of grow with this and get better at it. And how do we do that is make sure that we're continuing to engage all of us and have these conversations so that we can get better at what the change that we've already implemented. Part of change management is, like Nevin said, planning for many years, working with county, learning that way, but also you made a decision, so you plan, do, now we study, and then we act. It's a continual cycle of improvement that we should continue to use. So I think it's a great step in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay. Dave, the third question relates to multifamily housing. Crosslake currently has 2 retirement facilities and several multifamily rental properties. Are you in favor of additional multifamily rental housing developments within the city? If so, do you believe the city should offer incentives to contractors or investors to encourage future multifamily housing projects in Crosslake?
Well, Wade, I'm absolutely in favor of there's nothing wrong with multifamily things. When we get into the 3-story apartments, that's a different conversation, not that I'm opposed to them. I don't know how the city could incentivize builders to help them outdo it. You know, we can't, what we do for one, we have to do for all. So like, we can't say you can have free sewer hookup. We just can't do that. Lower tax rates, or, you know, I don't think there's anything, you know, and that's true with the businesses in town and everything. The city cannot step out of line and go help a particular person out. So the multifamily housing, I don't know what the city could actually do to help them do it. I really don't, at a loss.
Okay. Jackson?
Multi-family unit housing done the proper way, I could see happening in Crosslake, but not necessarily straight up like affordable housing, if that makes sense. I don't think right now our economy is necessarily what is affordable at the moment. If you have a proper developer who comes in and wants to do it, that's great, but I don't believe that the city should subsidize by decreasing taxes, sewer hookups, electrical hookups, how much parking space they need if it were to be an apartment. That's my opinion.
Bob?
I think we are definitely at a point where we need some additional housing, multifamily housing in Crosslake. When I look at all the businesses around Crosslake, the restaurants, the convenience stores, the hotels, grocery stores, they all need employees. And a lot of them are suffering because they don't have enough employees. They're struggling. They're closing a few days a week for the lack of employees. Or we have employees that are coming up from Brainerd or Baxter or Pine River until they find another job closer to home. So it's really a struggle on our local businesses. I don't know the solution as far as what the city can do to help it, but I certainly think it has to be encouraged and studied and come up with some ideas.
Robin?
I think there's a good balance of, again, I go back to the demand. If there's a demand and a builder, an investor that is interested in this housing initiative, I think that should be an opportunity. I don't favor subsidies by the city. We need to do our best to find alternative funding. If there's grants, if there's other options for folks, if they need assistance, but I don't think one town can be everything for everyone, but certainly if the demand is there and the investor is interested, and absolutely support it.
Jamie?
Multifamily housing, what a great question. So back in Cold Spring, as a city council member, we were presented with multiple projects multiple times a year. And every developer asked the same thing. What kind of incentive are you gonna give me? How much are you gonna save me on either water connection or sewer connection or making the land a TIF district because it's dilapidated or for whatever reason? Crosslake doesn't have any of that. We don't have any dilapidated land that I'm aware of that you could turn into a TIF district. If there is, great. If we have a demand, then builders should be lining up out the doorway to want to build here. And we have developments going up, but right now, unfortunately, it's storage units because that's what the need is. It's storage space. We want things stored inside. We don't want them left outside. We don't want things, in that way. So how do you do that? How do you be fair, and how do you get builders in here? Certainly, somebody who is making minimum wage at a restaurant is not going to, is not the typical person who's going to come in here and buy a $100,000 lot and build a $350,000 home. That's just not our area, and maybe that doesn't have to be our area. But how do we find that balance of multifamily housing? Golden Horizons is full. There's a waiting list for Whitefish at the Lake. So I would say there's a need. It's just figuring out where does that need fit in our city, and how do we manage that? And I think it's a bigger question than an individual like myself can answer. So I leave it at that.
Jackson, the fourth question relates to storage buildings. The Crosslake City Council recently passed a moratorium on new personal and commercial storage buildings and is updating the city ordinance with new regulations. Residents are currently limited in their ability to construct storage buildings on their home property for boats, snowmobiles, ATVs, fish houses, and campers, and so on. What is your vision for commercial and residential storage solutions within the city limits of Crosslake?
We had a good meeting on Monday night, if any of you were there to see Monday night's meeting about this topic. But I think that with storage, I agree with what our planning commission came up with. They have a 400-foot overlay down in the main commercial district, so anything on County Road 3, 36, 66, and then 16, no storage units right in the right of way. Where I disagree with some of their recommendations is I feel like personal storage should be allowed in limited commercial areas. That's right where Toy Box storage is. That's behind the 13 pole barns that are going up right now across from Montesiere's. If we put it in limited commercial areas or industrial areas, there are pockets. You're not going to be able to see them with proper screening and architectural standards. I think we all can agree we're probably maybe a little tired of necessarily seeing tin buildings when we come through town. We need to save our aesthetics, but I believe personally that they should be able to go into the limited commercial areas with proper screening. And there's another regulation. Let's say if you have 2 acres of land and you wanted to put up a pole barn that's bigger than 1,200 square feet, you're gonna have to go into City Hall and get a conditional use permit and run through some of those hoops. But those conditional use permits are there to help keep storage off County Road 3, to help some of those architectural standards so they have a little bite to it so they can limit how they look and where they are at in our community.
Bob?
It seems like pole buildings, storage buildings, whatever you want to call them, sort of go hand in hand with the experience of living up here and having boats and motorhomes and snowmobiles and jet skis and things like that. People need a place to keep them. Going forward, it's certainly a lot easier to set up rules and regulations, moving on, where they can be, what they can be. But looking at what's going up now, in some cases, these people were approved, they made major investments, and I think they need to be grandfathered in to complete their projects. They just have major investments sitting idle. People have bought that property and they can't do anything right now. So that doesn't seem like such a hard thing to grandfather those buildings in, those projects in, and then going forward, let's come up with something that people can agree on.
Robin?
This is a really difficult topic because, like Bobby mentioned, folks have already invested. There are some folks that are really seeming to be hurt off of just the delay. I also agree with looking at the grandfather opportunity for those folks that were already in the queue. The other thing I do also agree with is Jackson's comment about limited commercial. Someone at the meeting on Monday night, a couple people made really good statements about if it's limited commercial, how much commercial demand is going to be needed for space here in Crosslake. We don't see a lot of Tesla, manufacturing going in. We are a community of recreation, a community hospitality. So how do we balance that with the demand and the need for personal storage? The other piece I would like to mention as a transportation industry professional, less boats, RVs on the road is greater safety. So it's a safety item as well. And I think it's a good balance. We need to keep growing on this issue as well and keep the community engaged. Thanks.
Jamie?
My first comment would be I have confidence that our current council and mayor will have this solved before any of us get back into office. You know, I'm gonna steal what the mayor said, because I agree with it. We want the corridors to look nice, there's no doubt about that. When people come into town, and I think most of the builders, at least the ones that I've spoken to, agree with that. We can make them look nice on the inside, or on the outside. What you do on the inside is your business. What happens on there and how you run your business, or what you put in there, whether it's storage, boats, RVs, whatever, your construction equipment, you want to make greeting cards out of it, whatever. That's your business. And I understand the need of, allowing businesses to grow, and they all want to be on the corridor. An example, you see that in Brainerd. Everybody's moving to 371. They're all moving right to the road because that's where the traffic are, that's where the people are. So that's where the businesses want to be. If you really want storage, keep it off the corridor. That's a great place for it, So again, I hate stealing his stuff, but I think he's right on the money when make it look nice on the outside, do what you want on the inside. And again, I'm going to say this, I certainly have confidence that our council and mayor will have this solved before I get in office.
Okay, Dave, what do you say?
I heard you. Well, the reason for this current moratorium is on there is we have had about a 20-year-old ordinance that states in limited commercial, personal storage is not allowed. We have not operated under that rule. We have allowed personal storage in limited commercial up to the point of the moratorium. It's a reason we had to stop and take a look at it. I agree, there should be some personal storage in limited commercial. We have to open it up. But we also have to be real careful, looking 20, 30, 40 years ahead, that we've got the ability with people who want to put shops and they need the exposure from the road and they want to have it. It's not all consumed with storage pole buildings that don't need that highway exposure. So this is a battle. I'm in the middle of it because I am a builder. I know a lot of builders. I know what their holdup is, and I have all kinds of empathy for them. But somehow we've got to get this right. We've got to protect the corridor. We've got to keep the appearance. I'm around, and I get approached quite a bit in town, and the builder, a lot of people say that people want storage. They do want storage, but I always am getting attacked by, why do you have so many pole barns coming into town? Tin City, whatever you want to say it. So all we have to do is get them off the corridor a little bit, really put some teeth into a good screening ordinance, so they're required to have trees that they have to continue to make grow. They've got to water them. And we're going to try to do that with some fines and penalties if they don't. The only purpose of it is to make town look better. Some architectural standards with some roof line changes. Give the building a little bit of character. Give it some appeal. That's all. We don't care what's in it. You can do whatever you want. Nobody needs to go inside. It's my take.
Okay. Bob, the next question you're going to start relates to city sales tax. Are you in favor or opposed to a city sales tax? Please state your reasons for your answer.
I don't know one business owner that I've talked to about this that is in favor of a city sales tax. They look at it as a burden, and I think our businesses in Crosslake are what make this town happen. So I want to listen to our business owners, and for that reason, I would be opposed to a city sales tax.
Okay, Robin?
I as well am opposed to a city sales tax. With the lodging industry already charging a sales tax, an additional sales tax, or compromising their revenue would be concerning, as well as the recreation and the commercial, the use and the folks that are coming here to shop. They're going to find a different place to look and shop for that item if we have an additional sales tax. I've heard from folks that say, I come to Crosslake because there isn't a sales tax. We could lose that business. So I am opposed. Thanks.
Jamie?
I think I'd have to have some more information on it. I think there's a lot of economics behind a city sales tax and what that percentage is. I'm certainly not in favor of gouging customers, but I think there has to be some more information and analytics looked into as to what increase are you talking about and what's the impact to the community on that.
I am very much in favor of a sales tax and a lodging tax, actually. And a lot of you people travel around the country. Every time you go to a beautiful little resort town like that, Go and talk to the register, get a receipt from them, and look and see what the tax looks like on the sales slip. Nance and I were in Door County last weekend, and there's a Washington Island way up in the tip of Door County. You gotta take a ferry out to it. We went in there, I bought a cup of coffee, I came out, there was a 5% city Washington Island tax on that. And I've been out west to little towns, there's a 7% tax on it. We had proposed a couple of years ago a 0.5% tax. It would have generated the city $300,000 to $350,000. And the short-term rental tax, you know, that I could see going to 3%. I don't know what the revenues they turn, but do you see how our conversations are going where we need more police, more pickleball, more, it's all for these people that come into town. Us 2,500 people that are the stable part of this town who pay our property taxes, support all of that stuff. And I support the businesses wholeheartedly, but I don't make any money off of the number of meals that they sell. It just costs me more money because I have to pay for the services that have to help them sell those meals. So all it is a neutralizing, it's letting 70% of the outside people would pay that tax. We in town here with what we buy would pay about 30% of that. So it's a huge gain for us to do it. I think we really need to study it. I think we need to look into it. The store owner saying they don't want it, well, it might be a little bit of an inconvenience for them. But if you go to every other little town, look at the Port Authority of Duluth, it's 7% or something. It's huge, the tax that they charge. People don't not go to Duluth because of it, you know? People don't care about a 0.5% tax, it doesn't matter. But it wouldn't make a difference to our property taxes.
Jackson?
I'm opposed to a city tax increase. I was just talking with someone in the audience today about that topic. It would hurt all businesses, especially our businesses on the top end that are selling boats and RVs and campers and everything else. But I am certainly opposed to a city tax.
Okay. Robin, the next question starts with you. Relates to eminent domain. Eminent domain allows the government to acquire private property for public use, often with compensation to the owner. With the continued growth of the city of Crosslake, how do you feel about using eminent domain to support city projects?
Well, MnDOT is one of the largest beneficiaries of eminent domain. It is a difficult topic because it's people's livelihood, if it's their home, it's their property. So I think it really needs to be a careful study on the use of eminent domain and how often we do. This community is really, it's a wealth of history, wealth of pride in the homeowners, the landowners, and I just really think that we have to have a really good reason for why we are going to enact eminent domain for personal property.
Jamie?
I would initially say I would oppose it. It causes a significant hardship on a property owner. I've seen it back in Cold Spring when a roundabout came in. They had to purchase a ton of land to make that roundabout, and it was 4 or 5 small houses and small properties, but it was a significant hassle, it was a significant pain. So it's a tough thing. It's a balancing act. I certainly would not want be in a city that has to do it. Let the county be the bad person. We don't need to do that here, I don't believe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where this question came from. I've never really heard of it being talked about in town. You know, maybe if you had to expand a little corner or something where you needed to do it on a small thing, but certainly any large taking of property from private people, I would certainly be opposed to it. I think if the city needed some property, and we're showing that we need some property for storage buildings, for different things. I think we're surrounded by county tax forfeit land. I would certainly go to the county and lobby to see if we could get some of that tax forfeit land if we had to expand. I think there's a great opportunity for that. I would be opposed to taking private property. I have a really hard time telling people what they can do on their property. I'm a property owner rights guy. I believe that property owners should have rights. So in taking it anyway, I don't agree with it.
Jackson?
I mirror the same opinion as Dave and everybody else so far on the council. Taking people's property is always a hard thing to do, and I certainly wouldn't want to do it myself. Around Crosslake, we have public right-of-ways, and I'm in favor of keeping those public right-of-ways. On some of those public right-of-ways, we're able to put power stations and some public utilities. I feel like that's what we should use those for, but we shouldn't necessarily be taking people's land at all.
Bob?
I have a very short answer to this. No. I don't see this happening in Crosslake. I wouldn't want it to happen in Crosslake, and I don't see any projects coming forward where we would have to consider it, but I think it would be a huge mistake to try and do something like that in Crosslake, and I would strongly oppose it.
Okay. Jamie, the next question deals with vision. Can you share your vision for Crosslake's future over the next 20 years? What are the key goals you hope to achieve to ensure a thriving, sustainable community?
Well, I certainly think Crosslake's going to grow. It's going to grow at a very slow rate. It averages around 2% every year. I think the long-term vision is what does our infrastructure look like? What does our sewer system look like? How is that going to expand? What is the future of our budget, our police department, our administration department, our public works department, our police department look like? So when we look at that, that's where your comprehensive plan comes into play. And the last one I believe we did was started in 2016 and was finalized in 2018. So I believe we're due for another comprehensive plan here to look at our future. And I revert back to, where does the town want to go? Where do the people want to go? I don't know that the 5 people on the council make that standalone decision. I think it's a group effort, a city effort, and a residential effort.
Dave?
My vision of the town in 20 to 30 years, this is a dead end. We don't have a highway going through this town. We got a county road that kind of goes through it, but this is a destination place. So I don't think we're going to get flooded. I don't think we're going to have a lot of industry come here. We could have some cabinet shops, some more gift shops, but the trend is expanding a little bit. It used to be a 3-month year. Now I think the merchants would say that it's probably 6 months is decent. It's getting longer, but to be a full season year-round, supporting a strong business group, it's going to be tough for that to happen. I don't know how it's going to go. What happens here is the more people we get, it's great in the summer. They can't dump their money fast enough, but then they got to make it through the winter. And we see it with the shops in town. They fill and they empty and they fill and they move and they go. And currently there's some people that are struggling in town, the same thing. So I see that the growth is not going to be huge. The population may get bigger. People want to get out of the city. Retirees, I don't know where the baby bubble is. We're kind of at the peak of that, but I don't see it changing dramatically.
Jackson?
I don't see Crosslake growing dramatically either, but progress is always inevitable. You can't stop progress, but we can do it in a smart and responsible way. Crosslake is all based on recreation. As long as people keep coming to Crosslake because we have clean water and we have the natural resources that we do here, Crosslake will always be able to be sustainable for our future. That's why we moved up here from Rockford, Illinois 10 years ago, is because we could move up to Minnesota and live on a lake. As long as we always listen to what our people want in our community, I think that'll also help us grow. And Jamie had a good point of updating and amending that comprehensive plan and always seeing what the people want and how to grow the city.
Bob?
I don't really have a crystal ball to look into and tell us what's going to happen in the next 20 years, but when I think back about almost 50 years ago when I came here, we didn't even have shoulders on the roads in this town. You park in the ditch, and a lot has changed since then. Granted, it's been almost 50 years. I don't see a need for drastic change. I just don't envision that. Certainly there's going to be more people coming up here that want to live in Crosslake. Crosslake is a popular area. Potentially, I think there could be a need for another hotel. I mean, we have the Loon Center coming in, and there's going to be more tourism probably, and these hotels quite often are sold out. Part of the year they're not. Part of the year they're begging for customers, but it's getting more and more popular with all the event centers up here that they need a place to stay on the weekends especially. So I think that's just something you kind of look at, and you have to have a long-range plan, but what that plan is, I'm gonna have to sit down with other council members and figure that out.
Okay, Robin?
This one's really fun for me. I'm a visionary, and I had a great meeting today about, actually a couple of great meetings in the last couple of weeks about the connection between Town Square and the community center. The life that's going on at the community center with the pickleball and the recreation is something that's really vibrant right now. I'm a hockey mom, and the hockey rink vision and expansion over there, as well as I was talking to someone in Town Square, and I said, what if there was something like Rockefeller Center in the center of Town Square that had a ice rink kind of going around in the winter? My point would be, though, we need a connection point, and I know this has been a conversation piece in the community for some time. We have to figure out the connection between Town Square and community center so that folks don't have to get in their car and go over. So I think there's an opportunity there. And I also think with the changing environment since 2020, more families are moving up here. You're gonna see younger people, younger kids. We gotta make sure that we're nurturing their desires to enjoy the environment. The one thing that I did wanna just make sure I mentioned, and I can't remember who said this up here, but Jackson probably did, is the water, the invasive species. We have to nail that. We have to protect our lakes, because if we don't protect our lakes, my goodness, we will be in a world of hurt. So I just have a great vision of younger people coming up as well, and doing some great connection opportunities between the two recreation areas. Thanks.
Thank you. Dave, we're going to start with some audience questions. As a council member or mayor, how will you address discord between city staff, departments, commissions, and the city council?
Well, I think the discord is greatly improving. There has been a big staff turnover. But I think if you go into City Hall now, and I think you're greeted with a friendly face, I think it's a lot better than it has been. How would I address it? I'm in there. I'm actually welcome in City Hall now. For 4 years, I was now welcome in City Hall. So I am able to address it a little bit by presence, but I go in there and it's a good place. We've got a new administrator. Lori has got, she's going to have little Christmas parties, and she's going to be a good element in City Hall to pull everybody together. The goal, the vision is to have the 17, 18, 19 people that work on the city staff and all the departments, and I've said this before, but to have them all complement and work to help each other on a daily basis. We have not seen that happen. We've actually hired 3 new public works people that are, you never know what you're hiring, but they certainly have all the qualifications of being fabulous people, and I look forward to you meeting them and telling me what you think, if you feel the same way. So there has been a big turnover, there has been a lot of discord. I think it's really calming down, it's pulling together. That's one of the reasons I want to try to do this one more time, is to just try to finish up what we've started.
Okay, Jackson.
I believe the discord at City Hall is getting better, but there is still more work that we can do. The hire of our new city administrator, Lori Conway, is going to be a great asset. Like Dave had said, Lori has all these good ideas of employee recognition, these Christmas parties. Right now they're going to have a chili cook-off next week. So she's trying to bring back that friendly atmosphere back to the workplace. Now myself, I've always been asked to come into City Hall, and I've always been let into City Hall with no problems whatsoever. They enjoy seeing me come into City Hall. They open the door and they let me right in. No. But I believe that working together with our city staff and empowering our city staff to do the best they can and giving them the proper training and empowering them to do their job without micromanaging our city staff and not acting as a city manager, but a great facilitator and a great communicator is very important at City Hall, and I know that's what they are looking for.
Bob?
As one who hasn't been on the city council yet and worked within the city hall, I'm not familiar with all of the discord. I've heard about it, but I'm not familiar with all of it. I've had a couple of employees, former employees now, that have asked to meet with me and talk about it, and just to make me aware of what the situation is. We haven't had that meeting yet. But I'm encouraged to hear that both Dave and Jackson feel that things are improving, and I certainly hope they are. I get along with people pretty well from all over the world. I'm in organizations where I deal with people and organize things and work with people and try and keep them happy. So I hope that that's something we can do at City Hall as well.
Robin?
I think my battery's going dead. It's on again. It just keeps shutting off. So I've worked with a lot of great teams. I can share that in the last couple of years, my experience has changed. People have been very gracious, very responsive when I've asked questions or had inquiry. But I can also share that through my leadership opportunities that I've had in the past, tools and resources for staff to be successful is priority. Also, compensation is important, and I know we're a union. I've worked with unions for years, but we still have opportunity here as a city to compensate our really hardworking staff. I do have a book that I have a favorite book that I shared with my team of leaders. It's called The Ideal Team Player. And it talks about humble, hungry, and smart. And a great balance of all three of those characteristics is what makes a great person in the team. So as a council member, I don't see us as us, them. I see it as we. And I would be honored to help move the personnel committee, working with the teams to continue to nurture the environment with the group. So thank you.
Jamie?
I would hold people accountable. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to is strong leadership and holding people accountable for what they're responsible for to do. Certainly you're going to have conversations of disagreement and not always agree on everything, and that's okay. But integrity and accountability are key, and I would leave it at that.
Okay, Jackson, the second audience question. Earlier you shared your vision for Crosslake's future. How will you measure success along the way, and what steps will you take to keep the community informed in annual planning and budgeting?
I feel like our community, it already happens now, but I feel like our community can do it. People are very interested in what is going on, but sadly people do not show up to public meetings. All of our meetings are public. If you come to our meeting, you're more than welcome to sit and listen in. We encourage you to come listen and participate in our meetings. But going back to a thing that Jamie had said, as long as we follow our comprehensive plan and listen to what the people of the city of Crosslake want and update that comprehensive plan, we'll be able to go move further in the future.
Okay, Bob?
I agree with Jackson. I think there's an opportunity for people to get more involved, come to the meetings, watch them online, however they want to do it. But I also think we have an obligation to get information out to people that they're not inclined, for one reason or another, to come to the meeting, go online, and possibly more information through the newspapers. I've heard people suggest that we have more information through the newspapers because they just don't know what's going on. So I think that would be something to look into.
Robin?
Measuring success. There are social measures, there are analytical measures. It depends on the question at hand. But how would we measure success from a communication standpoint? I don't know about you folks. I know we need to invest in some resources to update our website, get it more user-friendly, more transparent, more timely. I looked at it a couple years ago, and Paul Teedy still was representing our county commissioner at the time when I looked at it. So, and I went to a meeting yesterday that actually said on the web that it was at 9 o'clock yesterday, and actually, what was that this morning? There wasn't a meeting. So I just think we can do better at communicating with our members, our people. And then when there's actual really hard decisions, let's get surveys out there. Let's get people engaged to giving feedback so that we can keep moving the mark. And it's good. Thank you.
Jamie?
So I'd like to see our city use more technology. We certainly have the council meetings done on Zoom, and you know, I think with the amount of technology that's out there and the cost effectiveness of it, I would like to see live broadcasting, whether that be on some cable network or right through the website itself. Everybody has a smartphone. Most people have smartphones, and the ability to get live feeding and live television use of technology is incredible. So I think as government sometimes under communicates, they do the bare minimum. I think we have to over communicate, and I think there's several ways to do that. Whether it be social media, whether it be posting things, whether it be using whatever means we need to do it that are cost effective, obviously. And the measure of success, I think for a council person is that second term. And certainly it's feedback. Getting engaged with your community, finding out what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. You'll find that most people will tell you what you're doing right, but they don't tell you what you're doing wrong. So sometimes that engagement is what really takes to go out there and say, what are we doing wrong? What aren't we doing right? What don't you like? It's easy to ask, what do you like, how you feel, and where we're going. I mean, it's tough to get people to talk about what they don't like. So that's where you have to measure success at.
Dave?
I think we got a really good current measure of success right now, and that's in our roundabout project. People do not like change. It's been a battle for a year, a good year, the roundabout, all kinds of opinions. Now we're not done, we're not out of the woods, but the first part of it is done, and I have not heard, I really could say that I don't know that I've heard anybody who say that they do not like the roundabout. And the appearance of it, and the benches aren't there yet, and the plants aren't growing, but I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing. So to me, that's a measure of success. It's a battle we fought for a year, 2 years. We got it in, it's almost done. That's a good measure of success. I'm gonna jump on Robin we miss our Northland newspaper, I mean, we really miss that. So we have talked about, Lori Conway came into the administrative position and she came right at budgeting time, so she's been buried. But we're gonna get a city newsletter that is gonna go out to everybody over time. And I think that'll be a good thing. It'll be a good communicator. And then the website. You look on the website and there really virtually is nothing there. There's a few events, but there's nothing there. And you go onto other city websites and it's very dynamic. There's all kinds of stuff going on. So, but hopefully, with staffing improvements and we give people a little time to be creative and move around a little bit, that'll happen. So that's what I'd like to see.
Okay. Bob, the third audience question. Would you consider changes to zoning to help create affordable housing, such as allowing people to build secondary units on their property?
Wow, that's something I haven't considered, or I don't think any of us have had that question yet, but I think that you could take a look at properties. It's certainly going to differ from property to property. You have to have enough land in order to put a secondary unit on there. It's something I would be open to exploring, but until we looked at it further, I can't say a definite yes or no.
Okay. Robin?
This one is a difficult question for me. I think that I would need to really learn more about what the current situation is. I would also like to have planning and zoning committee part of the conversation. If it makes sense and there's a need, there's a process that we can ask for a variance. But at this point, I don't have enough information to say yes or no. So, thank you.
Jamie?
Could you repeat the question for me?
Yes. Would you consider changes to zoning to help create affordable housing, such as allowing people to build secondary units on their property?
To build affordable housing, I would say no. I think it's a two-part question. The secondary structure, you certainly have the room if you're building something for grandma and grandpa to move into while you have your main residence. I'm certainly not opposed to that. But I don't know that Crosslake really needs affordable housing. I don't know how we could support it.
Okay. Dave?
First of all, it is currently allowed. and they're called guest quarters. They got a 700 square foot limit to them, but there are secondary houses on residential lots right now. To go more than that, I would really hesitate to do a second house, 1,400 square feet. You got parking issues, you got sewer issues, septic tanks, you know, the density would just be too much for an on-site sewer system, I believe. And what is that gonna do to the neighborhood if all of a sudden everybody's got a second house on there, because it's another, you know, way of making money, I guess, you could probably look at it as. We're gonna have twice the density, and if it's on the lake, if you get it out of the shoreline district, maybe. I think the city should look at maybe doing some community septic areas so that they can have 4 or 5 half-acre lots that dump into the same place and maybe use a common well to get pricing down to make it more affordable. I would support that. But no, to build a second house on a 1 acre shoreline district residential lot right now, I would not support that. I think currently they're able to do it with a guest house quarters.
Jackson.
If your property has enough space for like a grand or a mother-in-law's suite, knock yourself out. But anything bigger than that, we have restrictions on what you can do and what you can put on your land. I think that was probably like a 2-part question, but if somehow you're going to turn in a second place into affordable housing on your property, opposed to it. But I think it's more of, would you allow like a mother-in-law suite? And if your property can handle that, I would say yes.
Okay, Robin, the fourth audience question. Would you support attending or extending the cement sidewalks further north along County Road 66? If so, what would be the realistic timeline? If not, why not?
I couldn't hear your question.
Okay, I'll repeat it.
Please do.
Would you support extending the cement sidewalks further north along County Road 66? If so, what would be a realistic timeline? If not, why not?
So I would like to look at the long-term plan of expansion. I don't have a definitive yes or no. I would want to do additional analysis on traffic, foot traffic. I did have a couple of houses that I did visit that have concerns about foot traffic in that area. So it's definitely worth spending some time discussing. Timeline, we need that review and then find the budget to proceed. Thank you.
Okay. Jamie?
I think if the people supported it and we had the money, absolutely I would support it. Although I don't know how many people want to go through any more construction seasons in 66. I don't know how many times I've had to wash my truck or my wife's car and visit the car wash. I tell you, it's, you know, I'm certainly excited about this one being done. I was more excited when the first one got done. So, of course I would support it. If the people want it and we have the money to do it, yeah. But I think we might need a break from road construction for a couple of seasons.
Come on, Jamie. We're just getting used to it. I would absolutely support it. And there's something that probably everybody doesn't know about. The Lakes Foundation, the kids' school, the charter school, they are getting their mortgage, and I hope I'm not speaking out of place here, but they're getting it kind of paid down where they have extra money left over. And they have made a commitment to the city to expand the bike trails, the walking trails, in hopes to get it up and tie it into the Paul Bunyan Scenic Byway and go up to Jenkins and all the way through. Right now, they're currently working on one going over to 103, and it goes through East Shore Boulevard and gets around and ties into the South Park. But the Lakes Foundation is going to do that, you know, as a gift back to the city, give back, and that's going to be awesome. But Robin, you know, to tying Town Square to the community center and not have traffic go across the road, which we don't want them to do, that extension of the sidewalk is going to have to go up there, and I would wholeheartedly support it.
Jackson?
I would support that in the future. I don't know an exact timeline, but we have a connectivity study in Crosslake that people have talked about. We've always tried to figure out how are we going to tie people into Town Square and the community center. I would support it that way. I agree with everybody else. I think we're all sick and tired of seeing yellow bulldozers in town. We need to give our businesses a break. But yeah, I don't know the exact timeline, but I could probably see that happening within the next 5 to 10 years.
Bob?
In theory, I think it's a great idea. We have to keep in mind that it's a county roads. The county's gonna have to be involved. And when we got some of this other construction funding that was through grants, federal grants, and it took several years to actually get that all wrapped up and approved. So it's not something that just happens overnight, but I think it's a great idea. I don't want it to happen where it's gonna impact the businesses at all. I don't wanna see it happening in July or August, the two biggest months for our businesses. So if it could happen in the spring and be done by, certainly before the 4th of July, but hopefully before June 1st, or started after Labor Day, something like that. Maybe you can't do the whole thing at one time, I don't know, but I don't want it to impact the businesses. They've been through enough the past few years, so we have to be really smart about this.
Okay. Dave, the fifth audience question. How would you balance the growth of Crosslake and the up north feel, which is why many of us live here?
Well, we're currently in the middle of a struggle trying to do that right now with our overlay corridor district. I would not mind maybe even providing, but coming into the corridor of town, making or planting trees one way, whether we make the owners do it or we voluntarily offer it to them or something, but if we could make that corridor coming into town, it would be a great thing. Support the up north feel, I guess just do that throughout town. We're gonna have growth, we're gonna have developments, we're gonna have more people up here, and I think that's what we want, but we have to do it smart. We have to protect our resources and protect the appeal.
Okay, Jackson?
Like David said, growth is always going to happen and there's no stopping it, but we can do it in a smart and reasonable manner, and which he also said, that's why we're doing that corridor overlay district. But I was thinking of an idea the other day to keep that up north field, to keep along the idea of planting trees. When people do developments in town, we collect cash in lieu of land, so park dedication fees. If we were able to somehow take some of that park dedication fees and turn it around into planting trees, or requiring the owner to plant the trees, or the city would provide some of the trees with that park dedication fees and plant them around town, I think that would really help keep that up north feel that we all love.
Bob?
I think that's something that we all talk about. When something goes up, some building goes up, something happens, we lost that up north feel. But as Dave and Jackson said, certainly planting trees is an easy thing to do. But beyond that, shrubs, flower gardens, putting in some park benches, things like that just beautify our city. And it's easy to do and it doesn't cost a lot.
Robin?
I agree with everybody's comments. I also think that the great work on having a standard on aesthetics on the main corridor, keeping that as a priority. The other thing I was thinking about is the environment, and what the community center is actually doing out there is wonderful. So really getting folks to enjoy the outdoors, and also continuing to make sure that we're growing our trees and the beauty of this beautiful town. So not much else to say other than we got to work at it and have a balance. Thank you.
Jamie?
Well, I'm going to revert back, and I have all the comments that our current council and mayor are going to get this ordinance amended and done, before we get in there, and that's going to at least address the corridor and what's going on, and like everyone said here, I think we all want to keep that up north. We all have that up north shine. I think the big question is, what does that look like? I think there's a varying opinion on that. I think what the key is figure out what that is, and then address it, through whether it's ordinances or the tree planting or the vegetation or whatever. Certainly, I want to keep Crosslake small. I love this small town. I love that it's not growing like Brainerd and Baxter are, just stretching everywhere and taking away natural resources and things like that. So, I'm all in favor of finding that balanced growth and figure out what that Northland, upwards Northland feel is, and how do we do that?
Actually, we have one last question this evening. The city of Brainerd recently passed a no camping ordinance to stop homeless camping. Should the folks encroach on Crosslake, what action would you take?
I think that's a good idea. Personally, we live down Big Pine Trail, and we have the rock dam back there, and I go back there oftentimes, and there's people with whole setups back there. So I have to sadly ask one of the cops to come down there, because you can't camp down there, and they get shooed out. I think that's a good idea.
I agree with that. I don't see that we can be letting people come up here and camping in our parking lots and on our streets, and that's just not gonna happen, and we can't allow it.
Robin?
I completely agree. There is, I think, some language in our planning and zoning documentation that needs to be updated and needs to address. I'm looking down the hallway here. It currently allows for this, and it needs to be addressed, because if it doesn't, then what do we stand on? So, thank you.
Jamie?
No, I don't think we need camping here. We have camps, we have parks, we have plenty of other places that support legal pay-as-you-go type camping. I don't see how we could support or why we'd support it.
Dave?
Well, I agree with that, but unfortunately, the way our society is turning, that's the tip of the iceberg. There's all kinds of stuff that could happen. So I think we need to take a look at our ordinances, and if we gotta put them in place, put whatever we need to in place.
Okay. And I misspoke, we have one more question. Bob, you? Should there be a limit on the number of short-term rentals in the city?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer. We don't have an exact count right now, do we? I don't know how I guess the only way, if we were to enforce it, is to limit the number of permits that we gave out, or licenses. But I don't know if that's gonna stop everybody. They're certainly doing it other ways now, and I guess we certainly don't want everybody turning into short-term rentals, but I think the best way to determine that is if we wanted to do that, you give out a set number of permits and that's it.
Robin?
You handled that nicely, Bob. It is a difficult question. If all the seats and butts in this room today had an individual house and we turned them all into rentals, what would our property tax look like? What would we need to do to supplant what we're collecting? So it's a careful, delicate situation. I'm excited to hear about what this new electronic system that we're investing in will provide for data. And I'm really anxious and excited to see kind of the enforcement plan. It's gonna be a challenge, it's gonna be growth. But it's gonna be a delicate topic to be monitored throughout the years. Thanks.
Jamie?
I think near term, we should limit the number of them. As Bob had said, we know we have at least 200, but I think there's, upwards of another 100 that just aren't disclosed. I think limiting the number puts the control locally and allows us to understand where the growth is and how that happens. When to get people up here, they need places to stay, right? But how many places do we need for them to stay? So I think near term, there should be a limit. We get our ordinance in place, we get our wheels going, we get things turning, we figure out what works for us, what doesn't work for us. We get some control on it, and then we decide how fast we want that to grow and how many licenses do we want to give out.
Dave?
So I think there's 300 to 400 of them in town pretty safely. One thing that I've thought about, we've talked about a little bit, is have it be local ownership. I hear more and more that corporate people buy every house they can and turn it into a short-term rental and have a manager take care of it, and they may live in Colorado or California or whoever it is. So even if we had it where we had a little bit of a local touch to it, it would help. We could limit the licenses to 250 if we want. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It'll be good to get through the first year, figure out how many we have, and try to get a handle on it. I think it'll kind of self-flatten out with the regulations in. We've got some pretty hefty fines that we're putting in place if they don't play by the rules. And I think that'll, all maybe push some bad people out, or it's like, storage buildings. It's like everything. It's gonna find its saturation point and flatten out. You just don't know where that is.
Jackson.
I'd like to see a solid number first of how many we actually have in town, but then do a limit on it, but turn that into a lottery. So you would go into a lottery to see if you would be able to secure short-term rental. I feel like that going further or going into the future, the short-term rental fad will slowly fade away. And with some of our fines and regulations, I think people won't want to jump through the hoops to actually do it. So I think in time we will see short-term rentals decrease.
Okay, Robin, we're going to start with the closing statements.
Well, thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. This was awesome. Hopefully you got to know each one of us a little bit better. I don't see Marcia or Aaron in the audience tonight, but I do. Marcia, are you here? Oh, you're here. Hi, Marcia. I want to personally say thank you for your service. Being a civil servant is a challenge. It takes a lot of time, and thank you for your service. I pick on Marcia because I feel like I have the skill set similar to Marcia. Marcia's a rock on that bench from a fiscal standpoint, and I feel like I can bring that, fill a little bit of those shoes, certainly not all of them. But I do want to, again, thank everybody for being here. If anybody would like to visit with myself or my husband back there in the corner, we'll stick around for a while and visit. Thank you so much.
Jamie.
I have a desire to serve this city. Having served on a previous council, I know what it takes. I know the dedication. And that's what I'm ready to do here. I'm looking forward to the future, looking forward to the change that might happen. And I believe a council person, there's dedication, accountability, integrity, honesty, that are qualities that I have that I hope I bring to the table. Thank you.
Dave.
So I have been sitting up on that bench for when this term is complete, 8 years. And I'd like somebody to fact check this, but I believe in that 8 years I have missed one meeting, one regular meeting. And what that says to me, it kind of supports I am very much committed to this town. Is it time for me to leave, move on? Maybe so. I've got a ton of experience. I've made some great connections with Crow Wing County people, the police, Chip and I even get along a little bit now. So I mean, we've worked through a lot of relationships, and I've just got a lot of experience to carry on. So thank you.
Jackson.
Though I'm young, I'm the next generation of Crosslake. I live here, I work here, Crosslake's my future, Crosslake is my home. This is where I recreate. I would lead with example and lead with leadership. I look forward to running effective and efficient city council meetings in an orderly fashion. And I have no personal agenda as mayor. I want to be a mayor for all. Tonight we all have answered good questions, but I hope I've gained your trust and gained your support and you gained your vote on November 4th to be your next mayor.
Wow.
Thank you all.
November 5th, sorry.
Jackson, can I have my time back?
Yes. Add 10 seconds.
All right. Thank you all for coming tonight. I, over the years, have I've been president and chairman of the board of an International Investigator Association, a National Investigator Association, a State Investigator Association. I'm one of only 3 people in the country that have done that. So I currently manage an association that has 1,000 members in over 85 different countries. At one time I had over 150 employees in several different states, and everything went pretty well, so I think I'm pretty good at handling people, and I'd like to think that I'm going to be pretty good at doing what I do in the community. If you were to go and talk to our fire chief, our police chief, our county sheriff, a lot of the business owners in town, the restaurants, and say, tell me about CBOB, I think you'd hear some pretty good responses. So thank you. I appreciate your vote.
Just for your information, early voting began on September 20th, and ballots could be cast at the Crow Wing County Courthouse, second floor. Election day is Tuesday, November 5th, remember that? And doors open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. at the Crosslake City Hall. Thank you all for attending tonight. Your vote counts.